What's up? What's up? What's up? It's Rick on the Rocks and Dad again, coming to you live with the Talk Movies Extravaganza, Episode 1. We're going to be talking about one of our favorite guys who, unfortunately, we read about a lot last week or so in social media. Director, producer, actor, writer, podcaster,
comedian, comic book entrepreneur,
Renaissance guy, all around, Kevin Smith. So if you don't,
and vegan. Now he's a vegan.
Now he's a vegan. Are you sure? He's a vegan. I thought
his wife is. I believe Jen has been a vegan for almost the whole time they've been married, and Kevin just hasn't gone along with it. But after his heart attack of February 25th, supposedly he's going to go the vegan route because his weight has yo-yoed like many of us through the years. Yeah. I used to weigh 255 pounds myself, so I've been there, done that.
He looked like a fat Kenny Rogers.
Yeah, absolutely. And so anyway, he's doing great. He's already scheduled a bunch of new appearances coming up. And
all right, so for those of you who don't know a lot about us, we're Rick on the Rocks and Dad. This past season, we did a fantasy football Facebook Live show, and a lot of you don't know we are award-winning. We were the 47th most watched Facebook Live show on Wednesday
at 2 o'clock
from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Well,
so we felt like we needed to kind of snowball, steamroll ahead.
That's good.
With that award.
Yeah.
So our other passion is, and you're gonna hear some weird sounds in the background, and there's nothing like freaky going on. I've got a puppy that the little bastard just keeps running around. So the other thing we're passionate about is movies. Talking about movies, going to see movies. This past week, Black Panther. We went and saw Black Panther. Well, you've seen it twice.
I've seen Black Panther twice. I saw Red Sparrow on Monday.
Yeah, we had a long conversation about it.
Yeah.
A long conversation about a bad movie.
At what point does the Jennifer Lawrence factor become overridden by a very poorly done movie is the question for Red Sparrow.
Black Panther, believe the hype. Fantastic movie. So
if you haven't seen it, I would recommend you
totally
rush right out and see it. It's a terrific movie. It's well done. It's an origin flick, so you don't have to have a comic background or anything like that. I knew nothing about Black Panther other than what I'd read beforehand, just trying to get up to speed a little bit. But it's just a terrifically well done movie. So
on to Kevin Smith. And Kevin Smith is a director, writer, everything else. We're just going to call him a director for right now. But Dad and I really, really enjoy.
How did we first get hooked up with Kevin Smith?
I think I gave you a copy of Chasing Amy.
Probably.
I think you hadn't really. I'd gone and seen, because I was a young college guy when. I want to say I was like 19 years old when Clerks came out, and I was at a community college that was like had this big liberal arts program, and I was taking these film classes, and they're like, "Oh, you have to go see this film," and so like we ended up having to go see it at like the dirty, like weird like theater. It was called the Cinema Twin in Tallahassee, Florida. That was in the mall that nobody went to, and they showed.
We like those theaters.
Art house movies. So
we
like
spent a lot of time there.
Well, yeah, but we ended up. Sometimes you catch some good flicks, and Clerks happened to be playing, and I think it played like 2 weeks. I don't think it played more than that. And I went and saw it 2 or 3 times just because it was so different.
Because he did Clerks, and then he did Mallrats.
But then again and of course Clerks busted out, and that was the when indie film really started. Miramax, which unfortunately is a really super dirty word, but Miramax did start a tradition of indie film and letting directors and writers like do their own thing. So then he does Clerks, and Clerks goes off the map because he did Clerks for practically nothing. It was black and white. It was primarily talking. There wasn't much action in it. He almost got an NC-17 rating just because of bad language. So then a major studio says, hey, here's $10 million, go make Mallrats. And they hated Mallrats so bad. Like at this time I moved on from Tallahassee, and I was going to college in North Carolina, and I had to go to literally the same similar kind of crappy hole-in-the-wall theater to go see Mallrats with some friends of mine. We had to drive to Charlotte. I think I had to drive like an hour to go see this movie. And, of course, he spent all this money, and it wasn't that he wanted the money. The studio said, here, take all of this money. And so he wrote this amazing statement on not only like at the time slacker relationships, what modern relationships that were going on, but consumerism and unoriginality and entertainment. And the studio was like, what the hell did you just give us for our $10 million? But what's great about that movie, that's one of my favorites. It has some of the best one-liners of all time in any Kevin Smith film, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that was 1994 for Clerks, 95 for Mallrats.
And it introduced us, Mallrats introduced us to Jason Lee. And if nothing else,
yeah,
Jason Lee literally kind of like leapt off the screen for me. That character was absolutely, he was so good. And he was an ex-skateboarder that Kevin Smith was like, hey, I think it'll be funny. Let's do a movie, you know? Mallrats tanks. And then we go to...
Chasing Amy.
And I think the whole time I'm telling my father, were you still an ordained minister then?
Oh, yeah.
I think he might have been. So,
but that never, you know.
He might have been like, ugh. Boy, these dirty movies. Chasing Amy. So Kevin Smith goes to Chasing Amy, writes his script, puts his then girlfriend in it, his best friend Ben Affleck in it, and does a very small movie for like $250,000.
$250,000. I looked it up yesterday.
$250,000.
Yeah.
And the movie was fantastic and got a lot of, hey there. We need to get the interns to fix that. Chasing Amy is, to me, one of his more, I think it's a perfect film. And maybe it doesn't have the happy ending, you know, the happy ending that everybody's looking for, but it's a perfect movie.
It revolved around something that Kevin was obviously familiar with, which was the comic book world.
Yeah.
And it was very well done, mixing the friendships, the relationships that were good and sometimes bad, along with the comic book world. The girl in question was Joey Lauren Adams, a terrific actress who has most recently been seen on with Billy Ray Cyrus.
Yep.
In a series that runs on what, CMT or
CMT.
One of those. But terrific actress, and it made $12 million. Or gross $12 million. I don't know what made.
Off a $250,000 budget.
But he had a $250,000 budget.
And probably that's not taking into account, because I knew a lot of people that never saw the movie in the theater, but once it came out, we were still living in the age of VHS tapes. Once it came out on VHS, then all of a sudden, everybody knew the movie.
Yeah, and Kevin Smith, through the years, hasn't been a big commercial success movie-wise by a lot of standards, but where he's really been successful is DVDs,
video on demand,
all these, you know, all this other stuff that's going on, and it's been even going all the way back to Clerks, Mallrats, as Rick was talking about, on VHS, Chasing Amy.
Well, and you know, and Chasing Amy's funny because Kevin Smith's dialogue and the way that he writes stuff is like, there's one character questioning another character about, Archie's sexuality. Okay, we're going to go across the street and we're going to grab a shit ton of Archie books, and I'm going to prove to you that Archie's not gay. And you get denied. I mean, the stuff that he brings up, and especially if you're a comic book fan, he's like, Mr. Weatherby just wants to help Archie with his homework. Yeah. So the comic book world that he brought up in Chasing Amy was really cool, because it's one that I think that not only he was interested in, he knew sort of, because it's a tight-knit clique. And so to make a successful movie about something like that, and also Ben Affleck had never been a leading man, really. Ben Affleck had always played like the angry dude, like in Dazed and Confused, Mallrats. He did another movie called Glory Days. He was always like the angry guy. And Kevin Smith saw him as, you could be a leading man, and wrote this role for him. And sure as heck, before you knew it, like Ben Affleck was like Miramax's like go-to leading man. Like all of a sudden, like he's doing romantic comedies and he's doing action movies. Excuse me. No.
Nice.
It's all that bourbon.
Yeah. So next, in 1999, he did a movie called Dogma. Maybe his most controversial of all time.
We've been talking about this movie a lot the last few days.
And he made it for $10 million. It brought in, 31 million, gross 31 million. And that was in the theaters. It was a plethora of talent. It had everybody from Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Selma Hayek, Linda Fiorentino, Chris Rock,
the amazing Alan Rickman.
Yeah, and Alan Rickman,
who was so good in that. I mean, good in every movie, but that role especially.
Kevin wrote a great, I guess, eulogy, you might say, when Alan Rickman died not too long ago, about how wonderful he was. He'd worked with him several other times, and I guess they had possibly remained friends or certainly in contact with each other. And it was Kevin obviously thought very highly of him.
And of course the Catholic Church started, got very upset about the film and whatnot. And Kevin's gone on record as, I believe in God. If there was no God, but there is proof of God because I have a career. He's very open about, what he believes, but writing a very smart, there was another group that did that called Monty Python.
Yeah. A
very smart, let's ask some questions about modern religion and whatnot and see where this goes. But yeah, Dogma, I think, was one of those movies where like all of his relationships he had made in Hollywood, like he came together again. Jason Lee was in that, had a great cast. Now here's a funny thing. I want to go buy the movie or even stream the movie. It's damn near impossible because I guess at some point Disney owned Miramax. Disney didn't like the controversy nor the theme or the subject matter of the movie. So it's kind of caught in limbo that you can't really stream it. I think you could sort of buy it on Amazon, like a used copy, but I don't know that they put out like a really good, and that's one thing I like about Kevin Smith, because he's one of those directors that when you're buying like the super special edition of, like, I've got one of Mallrats, it has a whole different introduction that's got different endings. It's got like 15 hours of extras and music videos and commentary, and I'm sitting down with the actors and talking about it. Can't find that with Dogma. And we tried. We were going to watch that movie again before we did this podcast. You've got me saying it. Facebook Live. It's not a podcast. You can see us. So next we have.
Yeah, remember one thing is this. We don't have any inside knowledge of what was going on here with Kevin Smith and the studios and stuff like that. This is just what we've observed, what we think possibly. it's a discussion, which is this is a good format for that.
You can tell us what some of your favorite Kevin Smith movies are, or some of the quotes. Remember, we try to keep it PG-13 here on Wreck the Rocks. So if you could do if you do the F, then do some weird emojis or dashes or stars or something, as to keep it PG-13. That would be well appreciated. So the next one we have in the canon of Kevin Smith, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which I've got a really great story. Yet again, I found myself back in Tallahassee, Florida. I don't know why, I don't know how. And we got to go see a preview, before the movie, 2 weeks before the movie came out.
A screening?
A screening, if you will,
yes,
of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And Jay and Silent Bob, in my opinion, are just two classic characters in film history. They just are. And even people that have never seen a Kevin Smith movie can see those two images and go, oh, that's Jay and Silent Bob, which says a lot. I have never seen, it was like being at a rock concert when I went and saw Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And of course, the radio station had given away a bunch of passes. And that's how I had a couple buddies that worked at the radio station. They're like, "Here, Rick, take it." The entire theater had a blue haze going across. I mean, it was pandemonium. But it was one of the best times I've ever had at a theater, because you're in there with a bunch of people that wanted to be there, that knew the background of the characters, that were ready, set, go to like a movie, and it didn't disappoint on any level. That movie was so damn funny. And what I like about Kevin Smith, near the end of at the end of Mallrats, you see Jay and Silent Bob walking away hand in hand with an orangutan. All right? And there's a song by the band Weezer playing Suzanne, which is on the Mallrats soundtrack. He waits and brings it all the way back around that in Jay and Silent Bob, they break out an orangutan named Suzanne. And, that takes a lot as a writer to have the foresight to go, I'm going to use this. I'm not going to use it in the next movie. I'm going to wait. I'm going to tease it and bring it all the way back over here. And yet another reason why I love Kevin Smith. So, but Jay and Silent Bob also had used, I think for the first time, he used a lot of SNL people. He had Tracy Morgan. He had Will Ferrell. He got Mark Hamill, who was one of his, what would the word I'm looking for? One of his was idols other than Stan Lee. I think Mark Hamill and George Lucas are his big idols. Yet again, Chris Rock shows up in that movie. Jason Lee playing two characters. Gus Van Sant, again, mocking, Kevin Smith, full-on mocking modern entertainment and consumerism with, which I thought this is a funny point. And Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Gus Van Sant is making Good Will Hunting 2. I think the movie's called Hunting Season or something, and of course turns into this awful action adventure film, just bloodfest. Kevin Smith was a producer of the Oscar-winning movie Good Will Hunting. I did not know that. Did you?
I read it recently.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's kind of like when you hear about Mel Brooks and somebody says, oh, Mel Brooks produced The Elephant Man. But, yeah, Kevin Smith helped produce.
But a lot of the talented people in Hollywood work behind the scenes on movies that they really don't get credit for. People may know as a rewrite, and looking over some of Kevin Smith's stuff here, you see how many different TV shows, movies, whatever, that he did rewrites for, that he did scripts for, that he,
doctored scripts.
Yeah, they call them script doctors, I believe, in Hollywood. and probably on TV, I guess. I don't know. And yeah, so the talented people, and you know who you are, can show up and get the job done, and that's just the way that works.
So in the next couple of years, we've got Jersey Girl, which a lot of Kevin Smith fans make fun of. He made a PG-13 film that at one point was going to be rated R because yet again a conversation, some words that people were saying. I like Jersey Girl. A lot of people will throw rocks at me for that. But being a father, I like the theme. I also like George Carlin in that movie. George Carlin, he wrote a really great part for George Carlin. He made me like Liv Tyler, which I like looking at her, but I didn't particularly like it when she was acting. Then he did Clerks 2, which again is another very funny movie, and brought back in some of the same characters. I do believe his wife was in that movie.
could be.
Rosario Dawson, who's a great actress, was in that film. But yet again, 12 years later, he goes and kind of skewers what's going on, and whether it be media or consumerism, which is his kind of like what he's good at.
Yeah, for those of you who may not be familiar with Clerks, Clerks is nothing more than two clerks at a convenience store I guess it was in Red Bank, New Jersey, where Kevin's from. And
having like the worst day ever.
yeah.
And Dante keeps saying, "I'm not even supposed to be here today," which is, if anyone who has worked in the service industry has had that kind of day. Yeah. So yeah. So Clerks 2 ended up doing really well. And then we come to Zack and Miri Make a Porno,
which is one of my favorite movies. In addition to the usual suspects, it had two big timers, Elizabeth Banks and Seth Rogen. As the couple. And I just thought it was a terrific movie. It was very well made. Had a lot of people coming through it that perked things right up.
That's some funny stuff in it.
It had the former porn queen Tracy Lords in there. It had what's his name, Robinson.
Brandon Ruth, who at one point had been the new Superman.
Yeah, Craig Robinson.
Craig Robinson.
Jason Mewes, whatever. It cost $24 million to make and grossed what, 42, something like that. Although people expected it to actually do way more than that, and it didn't.
At that time, Seth Rogen was a very big comedic actor, and all of his movies were making a crap ton of money, and this one did not. And at one point, they just released it as like Zack and Miri, and then because the make a porno part really set off all of Middle America, as you could well imagine. But it was the name alone just made, when I first heard it, it made me laugh, and I said, of course it's a Kevin Smith movie.
I mean, and this was only 9 years ago.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of strange, and
the movie holds up really well. If you go back and look at it, like, the movie is just, it crushes. And of course, Kevin Smith, from what I've read, was like, "Oh, I've ruined Seth Rogen's career.
Yeah,
Judd Apatow is going to hate me."
I don't think so.
And actually, in the lineage of all of his films, Zack and Miri is right up there. It's one of the funnier ones that he's done.
Oh yeah.
And then we come to Cop Out. Which, Cop Out, if you've ever seen any of Kevin Smith's A Night with Kevin Smith or listened to any of his Smodcasts, was probably the worst experience of his career. I'm not quite sure his life, but at least his career, as from what he said. because Bruce Willis is such an a-hole. But him and Willis met on the fourth Die Hard movie, which Kevin Smith played Warlock and also punched up the script a little bit while he was there. And Bruce was like, hey, I want to make this movie, can make this movie. And little did he know what it was like making a movie with Bruce Willis. And it is by no means a Kevin Smith film. It just is not. And it's too bad, because I think if they had let him take the script over and let him do what he wanted to do, it would have been 1,000 times better than what it is. That would be the only movie I would tell you to skip, and I think Kevin Smith would probably tell you the same thing.
Yeah, because I mean, it had Bruce Willis and Tracy Morgan.
Tracy Morgan, Sean William Scott was in it.
So there was some potential there, but Kevin Smith didn't have anything to do with the writing, I don't believe.
No.
And
well, and Bruce Willis has his script doctors that come on, and this guy writes Bruceisms.
Yeah.
If the script has to sound Bruce enough, Bruce's. I've done air quotes like 5 times. I really apologize about that. It's not Brucey enough. So, and him, I guess from day one, him and Kevin Smith just went head to head on this movie. So just, X that one out. So then we come into Kevin Smith's next phase, and in between this, he's discovering what's called podcast, Smodcast. He's not quite the godfather of podcasts, but I think he's the first person that's really saw a major potential for it and wasn't afraid to, everybody had like a podcast, and Kevin Smith at one point had like 14 podcasts.
Yeah, he saw the potential and he ran with it, and he got hooked up with Ralph Garman and various people to do various things, so that he had this constant stream of material coming out.
Great material.
On different formats. Some of it was, and he later on he started working for IMDb, doing stuff for them, and he started. This is the 4th or 5th season of Jay and Silent Bob's comic book store that's on AMC Network.
Comic Book Man.
Called Comic Book Man, and he just saw the potential for it. In fact, I saw him a couple weeks ago on the History Channel.
Yeah.
Doing this historical thing about the Lincoln film that they had on there.
So in the last batch of movies, I'm going to link them all together.
Yeah.
Because he starts to go through sort of like a horror genre, and which I like, because I'm a big fan of horror, and you can do a lot of things. You can talk about social stuff. It can be funny, like horror just as a genre isn't just like bloodletting or whatnot. He did Red State, which the funny thing he did with Red State, after he did Cop Out, he made Red State for a few $1 million. And instead of starting like a bidding war, he decided to say, he was like, okay, I'm not selling this movie to anybody. I'm going to take complete ownership of it. And he started taking it around to like college campuses and showing it and like selling out and do like Q&As and stuff like that. So by the time he had toured with it and then put it up on video on demand, he'd already made all his money back. Like, it was a super smart move for him that he didn't have to, he can make whatever movie he wanted to, didn't have to answer to the studio system. And that's kind of where he's been at ever since.
Yeah, basically this series of things that he's done, he's basically been the writer, he's been he's been the film editor, and of course he's been the director. So
he did, in the course of a few years, he did Red State, which I actually really enjoy. Some people are very confused. They feel like the movie's kind of all over the place. I don't. I really like the movie. I especially like John Goodman in the movie. John Goodman does a great job in that film. Tusk, which I thought was hysterical. A lot of people didn't really get Tusk. Tusk is like the craziest Twilight Zone episode just gone off the rails. And he actually utilizes podcasting through it. It's a modern day twist on, I guess, what you would say like a Twilight Zone. Just with Justin Long is in it. Who Justin Long has been in a couple films with Kevin as well. And in Tusk, he introduces the Colleens, if I think I'm remembering that's right.
Yes.
Which is Johnny Depp's daughter and
Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith's daughter. I was trying to remember their names.
Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn Smith and Lily Rose Depp, who are the two Colleens, who have a very small scene in Tusk, but is excruciatingly memorable. And those two girls really play off each other well. And then he did a small segment in a horror film, anthology film called Holidays. And he did Halloween, which also had his daughter as well. And if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It is sublimely twisted. Of all of the short films that are in Holidays, Kevin Smith really stands out. And then we come to Yoga Hosers, which Dad and I actually were invited to a screening of Yoga Hosers and never got to see it.
And the interesting thing about it was we were invited to see the screening of Yoga Hosers, which included a Q&A with Kevin Smith. Although now this was a nationwide thing. It was being
a satellite.
Done by satellite. And we had previously, few months earlier, gone to this same theater, same company was doing it for a special showing of Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
On its anniversary. The Gene Wilder, Mel Brooks movie that's one of the funniest movies ever. And everything had been perfect, beautiful reception, special feature, perfect. So we show up out at the same theater, which is a few miles north of us here, and they're having satellite problems.
Google coordinates. But we're sitting with a large group of people who are all huge Kevin Smith fans.
It was nothing but Kevin Smith.
And we all started moving closer together as we talked more about
we had a lot of free time.
We kept waiting for the movie and waiting for the movie and waiting for the movie. And finally the manager came in and was like, well, if there's something else you like. And, of course, we were all like, screw you, there's nothing else.
Yeah, I don't want a free ticket to another movie. I want to see this. And
so
we had a great time. It was a great experience.
We were talking with other Kevin Smith fans, which made it, it was a lot of fun.
We had a similar experience a few years prior to that when we'd gone to the midnight screening of X-Men
Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past.
That was insanity.
At a theater in Sarasota. And that place was wall to wall. All the aisles were filled. Everybody, not everybody, but most people were in costume.
14-year-old boys were all pissed off because they were taking away their plastic, the Wolverine claws, the anti-antium claws.
But it was
pandemonium.
But it was great.
It was a lot of fun.
And the movie was, just added to the experience.
Now, I finally did end up seeing Yoga Hosers a month or so later, and I watched it with my daughter, who was 12, almost 13 at the time, and she loved the movie. And we both did. We had a great time watching the movie, ended up watching it 2 or 3 times. And she even mentioned that there's very few movies with girls her age that are the heroines, that are the heroes of the film. And that's exactly what he did. He made kind of a comic book movie for tween girls. And the characters of the Colleens were hysterical, and he fleshed them out really in a great way. And of course, Ralph Garman ended up. You saw Ralph Garman show up, Justin Long, and like all the same people show up. Yeah. Johnny Depp shows up as more or less doing his version of Inspector Clouseau without doing it so much that they get sued.
What was it, Guy Lapointe or
Guy Lapointe?
Or Guy, I guess it was
Guy Lapointe.
Yeah, Guy Lapointe. Because Kevin's done a lot of stuff in Canada.
But it is. And Young Hosers is PG-13. It's got a couple, being a Kevin Smith movie, a couple of things that they say are a little like, ugh. But no, if you have tween or teen daughters, it's a perfect movie for them. Because the Colleens they're the heroes and they kick ass and they're two like great examples for girls at that age bracket, which there aren't many for them to look up to. So I think that's the end of the show. And
we had actually intended today to start in with some reviews or recommendations of regular
we
things.
Did recommend. We did recommend
to start in on a series of shows, which we hope will go on forever and ever.
Go see Black Panther.
Yeah, to about some of the good movies we've seen, make some recommendations. There's some stuff out on DVD and Blu-ray.
We know there's a lot of good films coming out
and
here.
There's a lot of good films coming up. It's a little slow right now, but with this thing with Kevin Smith, with him having this heart attack, unfortunately they were able to take good care of him, and now
not unfortunately, fortunately.
Fortunately, did I say on?
You said unfortunately.
Well, maybe I just.
We're glad he's home and recovering, man. We love you. We love watching your movies.
And despite all the people that ripped Chris Pratt for saying they were praying for you, we were praying for you. So yeah.
Can you tell how many fingers I'm holding up behind my hand?
Yeah. So
I'll give you a hint.
We were in the
There's
Chris
only
Pratt.
one.
Yeah, we were in the Chris Pratt group there. So
yeah,
there's a lot of good stuff coming up. I saw one good thing about seeing Red Sparrow is I saw another real good trailer for Deadpool 2.
Nice.
Which is coming
Definitely
out in May.
Forward, yep.
The new Han Solo movie's coming out in May. When did you say the Avengers are coming out?
I think they moved the Avengers to April 27th. Okay. I think they moved it back 1 week.
Okay.
Or maybe April 28th. But it's the last Friday in April.
This week is Tomb Raider, which is the Lara Croft series that they've rebooted or re-imaged on the games, and apparently they've been selling like crazy. So they got Alicia Vikander to fill that spot. So
I'm not sold, but
well, it doesn't matter whether you're sold or not. We're just, this is what's coming up. Some people like it, some people don't.
Oh wait, will I be out of town?
For instance, Super Troopers.
I'll be out of town, so I won't have to watch Tomb Raider.
April 20th, we got Super Troopers 2.
Yeah.
Rick and I could do hours on the first Super Troop.
I could do hours right now.
Yeah. Right, meow. No, you could do it right, meow. So.
All right, yeah. So we're gonna be doing it. We don't know if we're gonna be doing this every week. It'll depend on how the films are coming out. I mean, heck, we might do 2 in a week.
I would think you'd probably see us back here in about 2 weeks. Rick has some traveling to do, and
I'm going to judge at Rocky Mountain Oyster Festival.
Yeah, believe it or not.
That is not a joke.
No,
that's the damn truth.
So we appreciate your comments. Anything you want us to talk about, we can go back in time and talk about a lot of different. The X-Men series, the Star Wars series, you name it, we can talk about it. So
yeah, and be sure to leave us a comment and let us know, like I said, some of your favorite quotes. Just try to edit it for us. Kevin Smith films, your favorite Kevin Smith films, maybe some of your favorite Kevin Smith television shows that he's directed, because I know I've got mine. And make sure to check out RickOnRocks.com. We got a lot of new stuff up this week. So take care. Appreciate you. Bye.
Bye.